Hello and welcome to the Hancock Creative Podcast. I'm Shawn Hancock.
And I'm Missy Hancock.
And I'm Vinton Bain.
And today we're going to talk about our great expectations.
Ooh, I expect it's going to be great.
I had a dream my life would be so much different from this hell I'm living. That is Fantine from Les Miserables.
Whoa, Fantine,
and she's
chill
bursting
out.
To sing it.
I'm quaking over here, but I won't because it won't sound good. So different from this hell I'm living. Oh, I did.
I knew it.
I had to. Okay,
I think
keep
you
going.
would do it.
That was inevitable.
Yes. Okay, go.
Okay. So, don't let that happen to you. What happened to Fantine?
Yes.
She had this idea of life, but she let life happen to her, and then her life turned to hell. That's very depressing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's I want you to stay with us here for another 40 minutes of this.
From this hell you're living.
It's going to be a real treat.
No, point being is that we all have expectations, and a lot of times we're unwilling to admit it. But we do. We all have expectations, and we realize we have expectations when we're at that point in our life when we say, what has happened to my life?
Yes, exactly.
And we're like, I did not think I was going to end up here. This is not what I thought was going to happen when I was in high school or whatever. You know?
This is not what I was expecting.
Right. So we do have expectations. We just don't recognize them, and we're not really very honest about it a lot of times.
Yeah.
So acknowledge your expectations and make those expectations your goals.
Exactly. Yeah. You have to decide and define what your expectations for life are, because if you don't, it's almost guaranteed that life is not going to happen the way you want. And so much better to just decide and make those choices.
Right, make those choices. So
and acknowledge those expectations that you really do already have.
Right, because you will end up having regrets down the road if you all of a sudden wake up and say, whoa, this is not where I wanted. And you'll have these regrets because you didn't acknowledge that you had expectations and you didn't make those expectations something to strive towards. You didn't make them a real part of your life. A lot of times we have these unspoken dreams or unspoken desires that we think are maybe ridiculous. They're not in the realm of reality for us. We don't expect that to be a part of our life, really. Like, we might have the desire to travel the world, but we're in a situation where financially that's not even in the realm of possibility. But years later, we'll say, I never did get to travel the world like I wanted to. And that's because you didn't take those far out dreams and make them real expectations for your life. And so you didn't strive towards that goal or that end, you know. Okay, so I have this theory about life and nature. And the theory is that nature is always trying to reclaim itself back to nature, or it's always trying to take everything back to its original state. So that's why when things age, it decays and everything basically goes back to dirt, and then new life is born out of that. That's the process of life. And if you just let life happen to you, that's what's naturally going to happen, is that these man-made expectations that we have means nothing to nature. It means nothing to life.
That's
and
true.
So life is going to reclaim what it sees as its own. And so that could be you, or, you know, it could be anything that sits still very long and isn't touched and isn't, you know, maintained or whatever. So if there's an empty building sitting for a while, nature is going to start reclaiming it. Oh, you're not using this? I'll take it then. I'll tear it down into its natural state, and new life will come from it. It's just going to be weeds or forest or whatever. But that's how it works with us in general. If we are not maintaining our life, if we're not in control of it, if we're not using it, then life is just going to happen to
Like
us.
just kind of
And it's just going to take it down to what it believes to be useful. And that may be contrary to your expectations out of life.
Exactly.
Unless you're a mountain man of some sorts, I'm assuming you want internet and you want
Right.
your podcasts.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
you
right.
want your television. And
You want your car. You want to go places. You want all these things that make our life as humans.
I think the big obstacle for people, and I know the big obstacle for us was, like you're saying, acknowledging our expectations, but being really honest about them, because this is really for idealists. But idealists have a tendency to romanticize or to over like, oh, no, I don't care about money. Well,
Right.
damn, money's kind of helpful
Yeah.
or whatever. And
It's like,
so, but
you're
if
just
you
not
don't
being-
acknowledge that if you don't make financial goals, if you don't acknowledge that, it's like, well, actually, I would like to have some of the creature comforts of this world.
I would like to
then,
pay
yeah.
my rent. I mean,
Exactly.
it's like,
So when you're defining your expectations, be honest.
yeah. Yeah. Be honest about the world that you live in. It's like we would like to believe that we live in some utopia where everything's taken care of for us, but that's just not reality. And if you want to live like other human beings, then you have to be honest about the fact that you live in a culture that requires you to make money.
you might not expect to become a millionaire doing what you're doing, but I would hope you're at least expecting to pay your bills and put food on your table.
Right, yeah.
But if you want to be rich and famous, that's okay. And that's, I think, a lot of idealistic artists kind of embrace, and creative people embrace the, no, it's about the art. It's not about,
Right. But sometimes it's about rich and fame, and that's okay too.
And that's okay. It is okay to want to be rich and famous. But if you want that, you better damn well own it and start working towards it, because that doesn't just fall in most people's lap.
Yeah, set your expectations accordingly.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
It's also okay to desire to pursue the artist's life without the goal of being rich and famous. But you just
Right.
have to know going into that other people's expectations of your success are going to be, oh, so are you rich and famous yet? If a person says, I want to be an actor, then that's the question. It's like our son has a friend, and he moved to Washington, D.C., and he's an actor. And when he comes back to Oklahoma, people will say stuff like, oh, you rich and famous yet? You made any big movies? And he gets really frustrated because it may be a guy with a business. And he says, I'm like, well, are you running a Fortune 500 club yet? Are you, or business yet? Are you, that kind of thing.
Right.
And it's just
It's
like,
because he's in the entertainment or in the arts field, and so there's an expectation from others that you have to be rich and famous to be successful in that field. And that's how it is with all the arts, where the expectation of other people is you've got to be rich and famous, or you have to be a celebrity, or a starving artist.
yeah,
But there's nothing
not
in
an
between.
in-between, which is not accurate at all. It's like when someone says that, are you rich and famous yet? You'd want to say, no, but I have a perfectly fine career here, asswipe. Just
That's what you want to say. Yes.
that's what you want to
Are
say.
you rich and famous yet in your business?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, are you a rich and famous electrician, or are you a rich and famous dentist? Or, well, nobody expects that from those fields, but for some reason, when you're in the arts, people expect you to be rich and famous.
Or an utter and complete failure.
Yeah, one or the other.
No middle ground.
Right, but the reality is that there's lots of people in those industries that are in the middle, making a career for themselves and perfectly content in that. They're not celebrities and they're not starving, and those people are overlooked. And we need to acknowledge that, because that means that there's stability in the arts. We just don't think of it often enough, really. We don't tell ourselves that. We have plenty of people telling us that there's not.
Yeah.
And there are artistic industries that have expectations. So, like, if you're a model, for example, then there's a certain expectation of your physical appearance in the modeling industry.
That's something you kind of have to accept.
You
to
have
break
to
into that business.
Right. And the same is to be said about other fields. There's certain expectations. If you're going to be an actor, then it's expected that you can act well. But
if you're going to be a doctor, it's expected that you have a license to practice medicine.
This is true.
Yes, that's true. I guess that's a good thing. So these areas have expectations, and so to some degree you have to accept their expectations just so that you can get your foot in the door and get a career going and that sort of thing. But once you're involved in that and you've got a voice in that, industry, you've made some connections, then you can start to bring about your own expectations as to what you want from the industry. Maybe when you are inside, and I'm not saying that you have to be a model, but maybe you're a photographer or maybe you're, an agent or whatever, and you see that, I'm tired of all these skinny models. We should give heavy models a chance or whatever, whatever the case may be. Other ethnicities, we should give them a chance, an opportunity to model. And so you can start challenging that expectation of that industry. But it's kind of a give and take. You have to give them a little bit just so that you can be to a point where you have a voice. And then you start challenging that field. Yeah. You start putting your expectations in there.
If you don't set the expectations for how other people are going to see you, they're going to set the expectations for you. So that was something you had talked about, personal branding. You should share a little bit about that.
Well, because I have this, I guess it's a philosophy. I have lots of philosophies. But the philosophy is if you don't decide what box you're going to be put in, someone will decide for you because they're going to put you in a box. That's what people do. They're always categorizing where they're going to put you. Yeah. And every time you meet someone, oh, what do you do? They're asking you so they can put you in a box. And so if you don't tell them what box you want to be put in, they'll decide for you what box you'll put in, or what box to be put in. And so you just tell them, I am a very successful blah, 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 whatever it is.
Yeah. I have you ever done that?
No, but in theory, that's the way it works, right?
I want to do that. I was like, damn, why haven't I been doing that? I am a very successful.
That works, because it's like there's people who have the audacity to say it straight out like that. I am a successful dancer. Yeah. Well, I don't know what. Whatever it is, you just say, you're going to put me in this box.
This is where I belong.
And it's like,
this is where I belong.
And if they're like, I don't know if you're that successful, they will still put you in close to the box that you want to be put in.
Right. Like I have told people before that I'm a writer, and I haven't written a lot. I haven't published anything really. I mean, it's a few small things, but as soon as you start saying that, it encourages you to do it more often. You're like, oh, I'm a writer. And you start believing it, just telling yourself that. And then other people start knowing you as that. And they come to you and you're like, hey, you're a writer. Do you want to do this thing? Hey, you've said you're a writer, right? Let's do this thing. Yeah. And they just know you by that because you say it all the time.
Yeah.
So it kind of works twofold on that.
Yeah.
And another aspect of that is if you want people to respect you, you respect them. You are like, oh yeah, you're this. Like you just said, you're a writer. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, that's that's part of what I was going to talk about is that you have to have a, I hate the word branding. I'm sick of that word, and I'm not particularly great at marketing and that sort of thing. But the fact of the matter is that we do have a personal branding, a personal image that we have to be responsible for. Because if we're not responsible for it, then someone else will be responsible. And so, like, if we want to present ourselves professionally, then we shouldn't be dressing like a bum or whatever. And we should act professional. And like you said, if you want respect, then you have to respect other people and even respect yourself in the way that you maintain yourself and maintain your public image, if you will. And all that stuff sounds probably revolting to some people, but it's just the reality of the world that we live in. We live in a world where if you want to be successful as an artist, you really do have to do self-promotion. And as hard as that is to hear, That's just a reality of the world that we live in.
And maybe it's not that hard for some people to, I mean, I know it's not hard for some people to hear. It's like,
No,
and
sure.
I wonder if that's not a little bit of throwback from our generation resisting that, but it seems like our kids' generation, our older kids who are in their early 20s, and it seems to be really natural to just promote yourself.
Well, I mean, they promote themselves online all the time,
constantly,
taking
without
selfies or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't even think of it that way. But, I think that there is some belief that personal promotion is contrary to authenticity or something like that. But it's really not.
But it's not. Yeah.
No. And it's just kind of a necessary thing to do in our life if we're trying to promote ourselves and trying to put our career out there, trying to pick up opportunities.
Yeah, like you said, if you don't put it out there, then other people are going to decide for you what you are and who you are.
Yeah.
You may think of yourself a certain way, but if you're not putting that forward,
Yeah,
they might not be seeing that. They might be seeing, oh, I want to be a professional business person, but they might be seeing the slobbish side of you, and you don't even know it because
Exactly.
you're not putting forth the business side. You're not focusing on putting that forth. So they're just seeing whatever it is that they happen to see because you're not trying to show them something.
Right.
And so they don't see you as that because you haven't tried to put that forth.
Yeah.
And that's probably been my downfall for many years. And, even part of it is not charging enough for your services. And that's been my problem is that there's this place where if you charge too much for your services, then people think that you're a little bit full of yourself and that sort of thing, maybe. But if you don't charge enough, then they don't value you or your abilities.
Well, yeah, because
as
you
much
don't
as they
value
should.
you. They're like, oh, well, he must not think he's very good. He must not be very good. He's not charging very much.
Right, and you might be exceptional, but
but you haven't put enough value on your own work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like when you go to the mall and you see $100 pair of sunglasses and you think to yourself, these are probably the same as the other sunglasses, but they probably sell more because people go, oh, $100, these must be great sunglasses. Even if they're exactly the same, they think, oh, I'm paying $100 for these? These must be good sunglasses. But you go to the Dollar Tree and you're like, $1 for these are cheap. They could be the same exact sunglasses. You don't know what the difference between those two pairs of glasses
But your
are.
expectation of them. So that is a really good example because your expectation of the $100 sunglasses is that these are going to deliver. These are going to make me cool. These are going to, and you're going to care for them better. You're going to have a pretty little case for them that you keep them, it's like you take care of those. Whereas the Dollar Tree ones you throw on your dashboard, they fall on your floorboard and you step on them on accident. And it's like, they were just $1.
Right. But they could be, like you said, the exact same sunglasses.
Yeah.
And that's how,
Let's hope not. But it's possible.
Well, I mean, it is possible because I used to work for a golf company and they would have name brand golf clubs. It's weird for me to say that I used to work for a golf company. It was also a screen printing company. But they had name brand golf clubs and they had off-brand golf clubs. And the fact of the matter is that they were made at the same factory.
Yeah.
And they were the same club. One just didn't have the label.
Little logo on it.
Yeah, and the other, was some made-up name that nobody knew. One was cheaper than the other, but they were the same exact club.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how we can see ourselves. We can be the same artist that we are, but if we charge a little bit more, then we're going to be valued by those people more than if we underbid it.
Yeah. Well, and I want to talk a little more too about the expectations of others. I found a really good Michael Jordan quote when we were brainstorming on expectations. And it says, if you accept the expectations of others, especially negative ones, then you will never change the outcome. And let me just tell you, other people will have expectations for your life. And I know we've talked about this on previous episodes, but it's just true. Your mama has got a plan for you, girl. It's like, that's how it is. But you cannot let other people's expectations, positive or negative, be your guide. You must choose your own path. But then conversely, we expect the support and encouragement from our loved ones, from those who we care about and care about us. Right. We're like, they're supposed to show me their support.
Yeah, but they might not.
Yeah,
we expect that from them, but they
might not. And sometimes they're just not able to give it. So a huge thing that we can do is we have to relinquish them of that responsibility. If we relinquish others of the responsibility of validating us, of encouraging us, of saying, yay, that's so great, then it's going to free up us to continue moving forward. It's like, because no longer do I expect mom to say, wow, you want to be a writer? That's great.
Well, you're not only expecting from them to believe in you, but you're also expecting them to believe in a whole field or a whole industry or whatever that they know nothing about.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a lot for you to expect from them whenever they're just now accepting the fact that you want to write or something.
Exactly.
You've got to give them time, and if they never come around, then so be it. I mean, you still have to do your thing. So yeah, you have to let them go, I guess.
Yeah,
so
well,
to
you
speak.
I think if you look at it as agreeing to disagree about your life choices, and I mean, here's the deal: they don't have to see it that way. They don't have to see like, I agree to disagree about your life choices. They'll probably not agree to disagree and be saying things to you like, oh, have you looked any more into blah, 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 whatever this thing is that they've kind of they value and they've been dangling over you. If you, though, have agreed, this, like, in your mind, it's like, oh, I have a path for myself, and I'm just going to acknowledge that she's not going to agree with me on this. I'm going to agree to disagree with her about my life choices. Well, then it's easier for you to love them if you don't expect to be understood. You have to kind of let go of the need to be understood sometimes. And not always. There are parents who come around. There are spouses who come around. There's people in your life that you treasure and that you're going to continue to have a relationship with that may never get you. And then when you least expect it, you may find out that they are your biggest fan. And if it works out that way, that's awesome. But you have to be okay with it not working out that way.
You can't wait on them.
You can't wait on them because
you have to keep moving forward, regardless of how they feel, regardless of if they give you approval. You have to keep moving forward with your thing, and you might have to, if you need that encouragement, you might have to find that somewhere else.
Yeah.
And then just be patient with them. I mean, eventually they'll see that you are doing well. Then they'll be there with you, but they needed that extra faith or extra boost for them to believe, because you can't expect them to believe the way that you believe.
Yeah. My mom always used to say about my grandmother, she's like, I would be frustrated because I would just be like, well, why is she like that? Well, I mean, why isn't she more encouraging, or why doesn't she seem to care? And my mom would be perfectly okay with the situation. And she had come to terms in herself pretty early on. She said, you just don't expect from others what they're unable to give. And I was like, okay, and that is an important lesson in life. And you can look at it that way. They're just not able to give that. And so I'm not going to expect it.
There's limitations on your expectations for other people, and those can change. You have to know what they can give and what they can do before you expect them to just be this total different thing than what they are.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, I have family members who don't understand the arts, and they think, oh, if you're going to be successful, you have to get up at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
You have to put on a suit, do your hair, and go to work. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, well, I stayed up till 4 a.m. working on this art project. I worked 60 hours on it this week. And they're like, oh, that's not success. Did you get up at 7 a.m. and put on your suit and go get a real job? No. Well, then that's not success. And like, well, I expected you to be encouraging. That's not in their mindset. They don't have a field for that. They don't understand that. That's not where they come from. So you can't expect them to be encouraging in that. You have to kind of learn to work around that and know, oh, okay, well, here's what they expect. And now I can switch my expectations to match that. So I can say, okay, you expect success, and you think financial success, and you think working hard. So instead of talking about how I slept till noon because I was up all night, I'll say, I put in 60 hours of work this week.
Exactly. They don't have to know the hours.
Yeah, they'll say, well, are you making good money at this thing? And like, I have a lot of prospects. There is a lot of possibilities for a lot of good
return on that investment.
A lot of good return on this investment.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's always amazing how some people are enamored with the sun or something. It's like everything revolves around the sun. Like, I mean, it literally does. But in their life, like, it's like, oh, the sun's up, so now we go to work. Oh, the sun's down, so now we stop. Like, no, we have electricity and lights are on 24 hours a day. We can work whenever we want.
Yeah. Well, and it's incredible the amount of shaming that comes from people's sleep schedules. I always feel bad for people who don't naturally have the societally accepted
yeah.
time clock, internal clock, because you can get a lot of, lazy, slept till noon, lazy. He's laughing because
Yes, that's
he's
me.
got a different clock than
me.
me.
That's totally me.
My clock isn't quite societally acceptable, but it's
luckily for you, it coincides with the rest of the world.
a little bit more than yours.
Mine coincides with the other side of the world. So when, Japanese people are waking up and going to work, that's probably when I'm doing it.
Yeah, well, I will say he has a lot of Pinterest followers on other.
There are other countries, like Russian people are following me or whatever.
Because
You're
he's
just in
pinning when they're awake.
You're just in the wrong country.
That's it.
But if I was over there, I'd be in sync with these people over here. Maybe that's what I should do. Is I should move over and just communicate through.
Just long enough to switch sleep schedules and then come back.
I probably should. So there's one thing that we kind of have been touching about, success being financial and our expectations being, kind of financial, but really there's so much more to our expectations. You cannot just define your expectations as what you want financially or what you want materially or whatever. You have to define what you want in your own soul. Like, what are your expectations of love? What are your expectations of joy and happiness? So when we're talking about that kind of expectations, then it's pretty necessary for us to talk about our expectations of relationships and what we want out of our relationships. And we've touched on family relationships or people who we would like to
impress or whatever,
right,
because they raised us or they influence us.
Yeah, so we've touched on that, but we haven't really touched on our expectations from our significant other. What we want from a significant other. Okay, so don't expect a supermodel to come walking in your door while you're playing video games and expect to have a meaningful relationship with her or whatever.
This is how sad I am. This is okay, because I'm not a video game person at all. And so this also shows how old I am, because I'm like, I'm sitting here playing Pac-Man and I don't understand.
I
Me
don't think
and
that's
Frogger,
unreasonable.
we got a thing. Supermodels aren't walking in the door when you're playing Frogger.
It doesn't matter what you're playing.
Okay, sorry.
No, and I hate picking on video gamers. I'm just talking about, in my day it would have been if you're just sitting on the couch watching TV. Whatever.
Or playing Frogger.
Yeah, but you'd have to have a machine to do that. Oh, I guess
we
I guess
did.
we had an Atari. That's true.
Yeah.
The point being is that if you want to attract a supermodel in your life, then you have to put yourself in a position where supermodels are. So you have to take the steps necessary to be in connection with them. Yeah, to be in that
be
world.
Be an agent or be a photographer or be something.
Right, yeah. I mean, be a photographer and then you can meet them all the time. And then for the love of God, please have more interest in them than just their physical appearance. But, get to know them on a personal level. You can't just someday I'll just have this awesome hot babe, or whatever. And it's like, not if you're just sitting on your couch. You've got to make yourself presentable to that type of person. And I'm just using supermodel as an example, whatever. It could be whatever you want in a mate. You have to reflect that. You have to become whatever is attractive to that type of person, or you have to become that type of person.
Yeah, when we're in relationships, I think it's really easy to put an expectation on your spouse or your partner that you, like I said, for like our generation and up, especially, I would say that it's, used to be that the man was the breadwinner. And that's not really our generation. We're mid-40s, but there's still a lot of hangover on that. And that seems like the most antiquated thing, the man makes the money, which is absurd in our world today. Yeah. However, it's really easy with these expectations of the generations of the past. I think it's really easy to put crap on your spouse that is not for them. I mean, we've witnessed it in older couples that we've known that are really struggling. Like I know an older woman that's just so unhappy with the way life turned out because her husband was supposed to make things work the way she wanted. Well, that's pretty discouraging, you know. It's like we need to learn from those generations and be like, no, you own your life. If I have an expectation for wealth or for certain amenities in my life that I want to travel a lot, well, then I find a way to make that happen. Mm-hmm. I don't just say, this is what I want, and my husband's supposed to make that happen, or this is what I, want. And
or even a happy or positive family life. And the husband or the man is saying, well, that's her responsibility, blah, blah, blah. The kids are her thing or whatever, because that's what's the role that the wife had played for years. Well, that's not true.
Not at all, yeah.
And I don't know that it was ever true, but it's certainly not true now. The responsibility is both parents. And so if you want that out of your family life, then you have to invest in that yourself. You have to put in the time with the kids and encourage them and give them the nurturing that they need. Nurturing from dad, what you would probably expect come from mom, or traditionally was coming from mom. So the father has to be nurturing now. If the father wants a happy family,
and a nurturing, loving relationship with his children.
Right.
We get our own expectations for ourselves. I mean, we try to fulfill the expectations for ourselves rather than just expecting someone else to fill them for us. If we don't do that, we just not going to be very happy.
Well, you'll end up you'll resent that other person.
Yeah.
Because you thought the whole time that they were going to do it. And when they didn't do it or they don't do it, then you resent them because you didn't get what you wanted out of life, when you should have been taking the steps necessary to get it yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same expectations in these type of relationships as it is in the whole artistic life. You go into a relationship, when you start out, you set expectations for what you're looking for. You don't just marry someone because they look good and go, oh, well, when they get upset and they want to get a job and they want to go do something, you're like, oh, well, I thought you were going to stay home and clean my house. I don't understand. And it's like, well, you didn't set that expectation when you sought out the wife. If they're not wanting to do that, you set that expectation of, oh, I just want her to look good. Well, here's another failed expectation. That's not going to last. You need to set proper expectations. That goes back to setting expectations from people of what they can give.
Yeah.
We're not all going to look good for the rest of our lives. And that's any friendship or anything. You can have a friendship and, oh, I expect them to be there for me when I'm having troubles.
Right.
Well, that might not be the expectation you set forth when you started that friendship, and they might not be that type of friend.
Right.
You need to know that that's what your expectation is when you pick a friend. And when you go, oh, I'm going to devote myself to being friends with this person, and I expect this to be the outcome. That will guide who you pick as friends and how you make these different connections.
Yeah. It's like, is this person a nurturing person, naturally? And if they're not, then you can't expect encouragement or nurturing qualities to come from that person. And so
and when they do, it can be a pleasant surprise,
right,
but you're not like banking on it.
Right. You have to be, and this is what this whole thing is really about, is that you have to identify what you really are expecting in friendship or in romance or whatever, in business. You have to look at it and say, what am I wanting from this? What am I expecting from this person or this situation or whatever? And sometimes, it's better to not have expectations of other people. And if you don't have those expectations, then don't expect anything from them. Then just be friends without having some sort of need from them or whatever. You just friends and just be friends, but don't expect something from them if you're not willing to define what you're expecting.
Yeah. Expectations are really kind of like the railway to your life, and you have to set those expectations at the beginning.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll be disappointed when you end up in New York and want to end up in California because you didn't set your roadmap. You didn't set the expectations to guide you there.
Yeah.
You just got in the train and said, well, we'll see where it goes. I'm going to end up in California, I hope. But you didn't set the rails to aim toward California. You just got in and went wherever it took you.
You just took some random train.
Yeah. If you don't set the expectations at the beginning, you can't be upset when it doesn't take you where you wanted to go because you didn't set the expectations to lead you there.
You have to define what you want for yourself and go in that direction. It's like, take the steps necessary.
When we talk about this sort of thing, I'm reminded of the movie Mr. Holland's Opus, and it's a really good movie. It's also a little bit gut-wrenching for me sometimes. But basically, Mr. Hollins is a guy who wanted to be a composer, who ended up becoming a school teacher. And this whole time he has this struggle with basically what life threw at him whenever he really wanted, in his heart, wanted to be a composer. And he never, ever got the chance to be a composer.
Well,
I mean, he wrote,
all the time. He composed his entire
But
career.
he didn't have the career of a composer like he had wanted.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if he really wanted that, he would have taken the steps towards that career. But the career he chose was the career of a school teacher, and his life was rich in that world, in the school teaching.
Because he loved music and he loved his students,
right.
And he sewed into them. And
so, I mean, so the end result was positive because he was somebody who invested in those people, in his students or whatnot, but at the same time, he didn't really get the career that he wanted. He didn't get the career he was expecting. And so there's also something to be said about being content with what life gives you. Mm-hmm. And so you kind of have to be thankful for what you've been given, and to start, like if you have an expectation from this point forward, be thankful for what you have and be thankful for what you've been given. But then, you can say, I have these other expectations. I have certain expectations that I want to achieve. I still want to achieve with my life. Yeah. So don't resent what life has given you, but say, okay, well, this is where I'm at, and this is where I'm going.
You establish your expectations from where you are.
Yeah.
It's like that. Those little signs. You are here. You're establishing. You have to be honest in that evaluation. You're establishing not from where you want to be or where you want to imagine that you are right now, not from this romantic notion of yourself, but from where you really are.
Yeah.
And also it requires honesty and a real evaluation, because it's not like I said, a pie in the sky view of yourself, but it's also not this overly negative view. I think a lot of people who are real perfectionistic will focus on, they see that problem, just that looming problem. And so they think that problem is their entire marriage or their entire life. They're just, they see, it's like, oh yeah, so I'm doing terrible. And it's like, well, wait, no, you have a good job. You have a nice family. You have a nice home. You have
people that care for you.
People that care about you. Exactly. You just happen to have this one area. And if you don't really evaluate things, it's easy for you to either be overly negative about where you are right now or overly positive. So you just have to be real and say, okay, this is where I am now. And this whole thing, it's a renewable process.
So you can
it's not a one-time event. It's like, I know we talk a lot about you have to decide at the beginning, and it's like every day is a beginning, quite frankly. Every day is
true.
a new,
You're always reevaluating what you want.
And if you didn't set your expectations at the beginning and you find yourself where you don't want to be, set them now.
Exactly.
Change course.
Exactly.
Don't just sit there in self-pity and resent it the rest of your life.
I should have.
It's while it's always best to do it at the beginning, and the first chance you get, it's never too late to switch courses.
Yeah.
And you realize,
absolutely.
I'm heading towards things I don't want.
Yeah.
I need to change my expectations to head to the things I do want.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, we're basically talking about turning your expectations or turning your desires into expectations, and turning that into goals and things to achieve, things that you really want, and doing what it takes to get to what you want. And you might not get exactly what you wanted. You might not get what you exactly expected. You might get more than you expected. You might get less, but you're going to get closer to what you expect if you have that at the forefront of your mind. You're like, this is what I want. This makes sense to me as a direction to get to that. And I might get close. I might not get exactly, but I'll get close.
What's that saying? Shoot for the moon and you'll land amongst the stars.
Yeah.
That's in middle schools everywhere.
I like it.
That's a good one, though.
It's true. If you keep your expectations can be a little lofty, and who's to say that you won't reach them?
Yeah.
It's good to set a little loftier than maybe what the world would expect, and to challenge yourself and to shoot high. Obviously, reasonable, but let's stretch what reasonable means. Let's go a little farther than that. Yeah. And then you'll probably land somewhere that makes you happy. You might not be the world's richest person or the world's whatever, best at whatever, but imagine if you set your goals to be the best you can be and do the best you can, you're going to be pretty happy with the turnout.
Yeah. I feel a real need to stipulate that you need to think about what is going to make you happy, what you want out of life that makes you happy. So if that's more love in your life, which it should be, I think, personally, I believe that, then that should be your expectation. I'm expecting love in this relationship. And so you're going to give more of that. You're giving what you're expecting. And so for us, personally, we had a real expectation of having a creative life and having a creative family, having creative kids and that sort of thing. So we took conscious efforts to get that. We made decisions. We made some decisions early on that were going to cultivate creativity in our family, in our home life. And so that was valuable to us. You know, having a loving family was valuable to us. Yeah. And so we always nurtured that. And Missy has always been really good about telling the kids, I love you, I love you. And she started that in our family. And we say it so often that it can probably be irritating to somebody who's stepped in to visit for the day or something. It's like, my God, they say that a lot. It's kind of weird. But I've come to appreciate it, that we say that a lot and we show that constantly. And so we have a rich,
loving family because we expected one, and because we set out to have that. We expected to raise artists, and we have. I mean, we have a loving, creative family, and that's what we got. We have amazing creative kids that are pursuing the arts with their careers now and finding success in it. And so, because we haven't told very many personal stories in this episode, in the note of just starting where you are, you know, I mean, Shawn and I, it's just been in our early 40s that we're like, oh, damn, we set out to raise a really awesome family. We didn't try to make any money.
That was not an expectation
That was not
of
an
ours.
expectation. It wasn't
We
even
sort
a
of thought
concern.
life would happen.
Yeah, and we have always done fine, but we haven't thrived financially. And so now it's like we've readjusted, and now we're making money. That's the direction we're going now, while continuing to maintain a loving home and loving family life and a creative life. So it's just that's how life is. You're just always readjusting your sails. You're always, readjusting your expectations and going for it, and so that's what we encourage you to do too, is just don't ever feel like it's too late, because it's not. It's never too late. And I mean, it may be too late for you to, I don't know, be a astronaut, but I mean, aside from a few careers like that, I don't know.
I mean, they could open it up to where you could pay your way. I don't know.
That's true. Quite frankly, I mean,
nothing is impossible.
Just decide what you want. And I know we've said it before, but decide what you want. Determine your expectations and start making real goals to get where you want to go.
So here is the practical exercise for you this week. Pick something, any area of your life. It could be whatever, and it doesn't even have to be anything big. It could be something small, but pick something and define what you want in that area, and write it down on a note card so that you have physically written it down, and then write down some steps that doesn't even have to be very many. It's just an exercise, really, just to get your brain wrapped around this concept. But write down 4 or 5 steps that you think that makes sense to you to take to get what you want in that area of your life. It'd probably be easier if you weren't picking like relationship or something, that you're picking something simple like, what do you expect out of your cat this week, or something like that. I don't know.
That seems even harder.
Oh, does it?
Control a cat.
That is expect anything from a cat.
Yeah, I don't.
That is a relationship, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's more. Yeah.
Okay, so whatever, just it's your life. Pick something easy. Your dog, that's easy.
No. Well, tweet at us about the assignment. We'd love to hear what you picked. They always say to fulfill one of your own needs. So I've started recording pep talks because I need pep talks, damn it. And so I am been recording those, and those are going to start being released each week in between our regular episodes. So just keep your eye out for those. Those are called Creativity Takes Courage, Pep Talks for Creatives. If you get a chance, we'd love for you to give us a review. We'd also love to hear from you on Twitter. It's Hancock Creative. On Instagram, Hancock Creative Shop. And you can look us up on Etsy at our Hancock Creative Shop. And we have lovely things we'd love to sell you. We also have a shop, a physical location in Guthrie, Oklahoma. So if you ever find yourself passing through Oklahoma or in the area, please stop in and see us and check out the art and say hi and tell us you listen to the podcast. We'd love to talk to you. We'd also like to thank Vinton Bain, who is here with us and who is always here with us, making the magic of technical things happen right. And
you're welcome.
He helps it a lot. And we also want to give a shout out to Gabriel Knight Hancock, our son. You can hear his music at gabrielknight.bandcamp.com. He's the music at the beginning and ending of the show. So thank you so much. Go be blessed and make art, people.